Hello and welcome to the Get French Football News Preview Show. I'm your host, Eric Devin. Joining me this week are Nathan Staples, Adam White, and Peter Bowler. Before we get started with the show, a brief recap of the week's two European matches involving French sides. Saint-Etienne made the long journey to Jerusalem to face the notorious Baitar, and despite some nervy moments, including going a goal down early on, the club recovered well enough. A fine finish from Fabien Lemoine leveling the score just 7 minutes after the hosts had taken the lead. Florentin Pogba bundled home the winner from a corner at the half-hour mark to give the Ligue a 2-1 margin. Despite Lemoine picking up a booking, the club faced next week's return leg with a good chance of progressing to the group stage. Monaco were also on the road yesterday and executed a fine win over injury-hit Villarreal at the Madrigal, Fabinho scoring a penalty just 3 minutes in. The hosts responded, though, through Pato on 36 minutes, before Bernardo Silva clinched the win 20 minutes from time with a brilliant solo goal. So, wanted to come on to you first, Nathan. Talking about Monaco, the defense looked better, but could a better striker have punished this team more? Pato had quite a few chances.
Absolutely. I think saying that their defence looked better is a marginal gain if you want to say it that way. They still look very iffy at the back. I mean, Monday had a decent game until he got ridiculously sent off for that very silly challenge at the end and the little flick out at Sami Castillejo. I thought that they started Raji in this game as well because CDB, yes, he was injured during the weekend, so that the Raji has to play this game. So he didn't add enough in an attacking sense. He doesn't add enough in a defensive sense, and he was caught too often, almost in the centre back position alongside Jameson, who was poor again, is probably the best way to put it. And Glick is left alone as the only man who can try and defend. It was a positive start for Monaco. I thought they started very well, getting the penalty, and Lamar's persistence to get that was excellent. And then they sat in their shell and allowed a Villarreal team that they should absolutely be pouncing on with the summer of injuries and departures and especially of Marcelino, the manager. They should be pouncing on something like that where they could build up a sizable lead and really take this tie away from them. But they didn't, and it's an awful sort of defensive mistake. They allow Bruno Soriano too much space. The header is much too easy for the striker to win, to play down to Pato. Glick tries to challenge for it, but for some reason Raji thinks he should challenge for it as well, but neither win it, leaving Pato on his own, and he scores a very simple goal. And it's taken Bernardo Silva to produce another moment of brilliance, and he was excellent again. They cannot afford to not play him anymore. That moment of brilliance, even though it was deflected as well, saved them in the end. And that goal is enormous, though, because Villarreal now need two at the Stade Louis II, and I don't see that happening. But they still look really bad at defence, I think. I still think they need another centre-back. Jemison's not going to be good enough. I would have preferred playing Fabinho at right-back personally, and I would have risked playing someone like João Moutinho from the start in that position in midfield, because they needed to dominate that central area a little bit more, and they gave someone like Bruno Soriano, who was at times absolutely immense for Villarreal. Way too much time on the ball.
All right, Adam, I'll come on to you. So Nathan mentioned there that moment of petulance from Benjamin Mendy. This is a player who has a history of doing this. I mean, not in perhaps so rash a mode, but his discipline and his tackling are less than stellar, to be quite charitable. Can be brilliant going forward, but has a chance to hurt his team. So Elderson is probably the natural replacement for the return leg, but what do Monaco do? I mean, if Mendy shows this sort of action on a big stage, can he be trusted going forward?
I think that's a very interesting question. I would argue probably not. I've always had a bit of a bugbear about players who are liabilities in this sense, that are likely to get themselves sent off. There are players that are playing near the line, they'll be aggressive, and they'll get booked occasionally and get themselves in trouble. Like Diego Costa is a good example. Often goes over the line, but rarely gets himself actually sent off. I remember Robbie Savage only ever got sent off once in his career. Players that are a liability to the team in this huge stage, where Monaco, it's so important for them to get into the Champions League, and to do well in the Champions League. If they've got someone like Mendy who could get himself sent off like he did yesterday, because that silly second slap on the player there that came in was just ridiculous. And I would worry if I was Jardim that if he's a player that's liable to do that, then perhaps his place in the side should be under threat. I mean, he's a young lad. He's only 22, and he's he'll learn. But have Monaco got the time to let him learn? I'm not sure. I think Eshishile is a more experienced player. Mendy's definitely the better player. But when it comes to such a huge game, if it happens again, then maybe Jardim should consider his place under threat. I mean, Tisseren's an option. He can play at right back. Perhaps the left back is maybe a bit too far out of position, but he's an option there too. But I would question his temperament going forward, and it's something that Jardim needs to address with the player himself, because he's a good player. But they need him to be sensible. Otherwise it could come up and hurt them later on.
Peter, I don't think I could disagree or could agree with you more there, Adam. Peter, come on to you. Bernardo Silva, what a goal! Now that he's back fit, he gives an incredible element of dynamism to this Monaco team. So my question to you is, assuming that Monaco progress, which we hope they will for the sake of the coefficient, which will be our theme through the season, how do you think Monaco should set up going forward? Especially once Falcao is back fit.
Yeah. Well, if I recall, I think in the first recording of this preview show, we talked about how Monaco should line up, and I think we kind of all agreed that Bernardo Silva playing behind the striker in a kind of 4-4-1-1 looked really promising, and I really enjoyed watching that formation sort of come to fruition last night. I thought Bernardo Silva in that role where he can just roam as much as he likes and be creative and be the centre of attention as far as the team going forward is concerned. It's really, really good for him and really, really good for Monaco. And I'd like to see that continue if we can. As far as Falcao goes, he didn't look too bad, did he, when in the previous games he's played? But considering how well Germain played last season for Nice, I think he should be the first choice striker, and I'd like to see Monaco continue with how they lined up against Villarreal in Ligue 1 if possible.
Right, we had seen that obviously in the second half against Guingamp after Mbappe had gone off, and obviously the results there speak for themselves. So, does anybody else have anything to add to our discussion about Monaco and their formation?
Yeah, I'd like to.
I'd just like to quickly mention, I was thinking of this during their game against Guingamp. It's a little bit out there, I know that, but because I thought that while I was writing it down. But I would quite like them to play sort of with their abundance of midfielders and especially players in those central areas that impress more. I thought Dirar was very poor last night. And that's not a surprise. He's not very consistent, really. But they have really good attacking fullbacks, and I would like them to play with three at the back, potentially Bakayoko in between the two usual centre-backs. Play two more interesting centre midfielders, maybe like a Jean Moutinho, and then it's a debate who you can put up next to him, and then use Bernardo Silva and Thomas Lemar in those central areas behind a third striker of someone like Germain. And then you've got a more interesting balance to the team. You could always add two up front if you decided to put Falcao up there or something like that, and use Sidibe / Mondi / Fabinho as wing backs. I think that could be a really interesting formation with the width coming from those full backs. I think it could really, because they have such a lack of depth, especially out wide in the wing positions. I think that would be a really interesting thing for Jardim to try.
So, and Adam, you were going to say something as well?
Oh, no, I wasn't. No, sorry.
No, that was me.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on the effect that Glick had on the back four last night. From all of the footage I saw of that game, one thing I noticed was that Glick never had his mouth shut. Constantly talking, constantly organising, and that's something that Monaco back four really, really needs. I think when Sidibe comes back into the team, I'd like to see him go back to left back. I think, as Nathan highlighted, they've got an abundance of midfielders. Why not put Fabinho back at right back, where he was so effective last season, and bring Moutinho in next to Bakayoko if you want to keep with that 4-4-1-1. But as I was saying, I think Glick showed what a fantastic signing he is for Monaco, and how much more he does than just simply get the ball back. He's an organiser, a leader, and I think Monaco, I think they could do good things in this competition.
All right. Does anybody think that there's any life in this tie, or is that it? Monaco looks set to progress.
That second goal's killed that tie, I think. Villarreal need 2. I can't see them scoring 2 with Bakambu still out, although Pato was decent at times. Bruno Soriano is a very good player, but you can't drag this team through to a 2-0 win. I can't see that.
All right. Seems like we've got a consensus by silence there. So we'll move on now to Saint-Etienne's trip to Jerusalem. This is probably, interestingly enough, an easier draw on paper than their match against AEK Athens last time out. So, Adam, I'll come on to you first. Really a bit of poor communication there for the first goal. How do you see that affecting the team going forward, and maybe also talk a little bit about how Saint-Etienne responded to that? Because let's face it, this is a team that's built their reputation and built their success over the past 4 or 5 seasons under Galtier on defensive solidity. So to concede such a relatively poor goal early on, talk a little bit about their resilience and what that means for them going forward.
I think it's definitely a good sign. Galtier will be disappointed with the goal, but it's not too worrying in terms of defensive stability. I think they're a defensively solid team. They're a well-organised team, and if Galtier can do anything, it's organise a defence, and he's done that really well with Saint-Etienne over the few years. But you're right, to come back quickly, ahead by the half-hour mark, was another brilliant sign that perhaps that they can add that to their game in Europe, and they can be more resilient and show more character than they have in previous years. I think that's something that perhaps affected them at times, definitely in the league last season, after they got knocked out. That last-minute goal against Basel really affects them for 3 or 4 weeks in the league, and they struggled to come back. But when they came back yesterday against Beta, obviously I don't think Beta Jerusalem are the strongest of opponents, so that may have something to do with it. But looking forward, you would hope that they can replicate that and they can learn from that experience, and Galtier can use it and say that we've done this before. If they do a bit behind at half-time in a more difficult game away from home, he can use this as an example that we've been away to a difficult game in Europe, and we've come back and we've shown resilience, we've shown that character to come back and take the tie, and you'd make them like strong favourites in a similar way you'd make Monaco favourites, although the gap in class here is bigger, so I'd have Saint-Etienne as more likely to go through. But I think overall it shows that they've got good players, they've got a good team, and they will be able to come back from this sort of thing in these sort of situations. You just hope that, even though it's not just because it's a relatively weak team, I think this is probably an easier tie than their first round tie in the previous round. So defensively they're strong. I wouldn't worry too much about the goal. It was a bit of a lapse, but they'll recover from that. Just try and replicate the style going forward. I think they did defend overall pretty well yesterday. And if I was Galtier, I'd be pretty pleased with that result.
Absolutely. I think having a 2-1 lead away from home is a strong result for any knockout competition. Peter, I'll come on to you. The goal really seemed to energize Baitar. Before Saint-Etienne scored, they seemed to play with a bit more urgency and attack, but that also left them more open in the back. Did the Israeli team make a mistake rather than sitting back after having scored?
I'm not sure, if I'm honest. I think they tried to play a similar game to Kabbalah when they played Lille, in trying to nick that goal early on and then just sit on it, which is a risky take, but if you feel like you can defend and organise yourselves well enough, it might just work out for you. I was really impressed by Saint-Etienne, actually. It's really difficult, as Lille showed, to go 1-0 down in these European games, and to, especially when you're away from home, to keep confidence levels high and to not let your heads drop. And I think they did a really excellent job of taking control of the game and pushing back. It really was a Sunday league goal to concede, but yeah, I think there were promising signs there. I really do. I really like Monet Paquet. I think he's someone who could potentially do big things if given game time. And yeah, I don't think there was. I don't think that the Israeli team necessarily did anything wrong in their game plan, but perhaps they underestimated Saint-Etienne's ability to break and to score.
All right, I'll come back to you, Adam. I know Nathan didn't have a chance to watch this, but Adam, I was really impressed with the attacking play from the fullbacks. Pierre-Yves Paloma and Kevin Thiafoe-Catherine are not necessarily known for their attacking nous, but I think both got forward exceptionally well, but in a controlled manner. Do you see that as something they can carry into the Ligue 1 season, or was that more of a needs-must situation given this is a knockout tie?
I'm sorry, you dropped out there, right? Could you repeat the question quickly?
Yes, sorry. Saint-Etienne's fullbacks seem to be playing with a little bit more attacking verve. Do you think that's something they can carry into the Ligue 1 season? I know these are two fullbacks that have a reputation of being a bit more defensive, but was it needs must for this match, or is that something they can show on a more consistent basis? Hello? Adam?
Adam, can you hear Eric?
I think that question's thrown him into shock.
Yes.
Well, okay, I'll pick this up. Yeah, so watching the match, I was personally really impressed with the play of the two. I mean, Polomas played center back more often. Thiafoe-Catherine's played there as well. They're not exactly players that are well known for getting forward, but the way that they created the pass for the first goal, Thiafoe-Catherine, and Polomas got forward a fair amount as well. I think that's something that Saint-Etienne should really look forward to as a positive marker. We've seen this team be sort of classed attacks as this defensively dour, unimaginative unit, but I think the way that the fullbacks can be involved, if this is something they can take forward consistently, really is a serious marker for the team to play with a bit more thrust when necessary.
Eric, do you think Florentine Pogba will end up moving somewhere for 80 million euros at the end of this season?
I would hope not. But he really has impressed and continued to mature as a central defender. So just one more thing, and Nathan, I'll throw this to you since it is a bit more of a general question. Kevin Monipake started in place of Oussama Tanan, and obviously we've seen both of these players play enough that we have a sense of their style. Do you think that there is something to be said for that in terms of the way that the width that both of them provide can stretch play, whereas Tanan likes to cut inside a bit more?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. They're two wingers, but they're two completely different styles of wingers. Tanan is a much more direct, in the mould of the kind of modern Cristiano Ronaldo-esque winger that likes to essentially be an out-wide striker, an inside forward. He adds a goal threat, and I like Tanan a lot, but to possibly get something the best out of the strikers at Saint-Etienne, you may need to get a more traditional winger, because Hamuma is a very similar player to Tanan in the sense that he does tend to want to cut inside, but he can play out wide a little bit more often. Kevin Monipake is more of a traditional beat your man, get to the byline kind of winger, and that'll add a different dimension to Saint-Etienne, as it probably did the other night. If he started, that he would have tried to create chances for his teammates rather than try and score on his own accord. But it's a difficult choice for Galtier to make. It depends on what will suit his side more often and what kind of opponents he's facing. I think that at this time, the way they've been playing to start the season, I would try and use Kevin Monipake more, as Tanan's been a little bit ineffective. He's been a little bit predictable as well, and teams have sort of stopped him from really influencing the game like he did in the back end of last season. So I'd like to see Monipake start a few more games and see if his width and his ability to get past players and put the ball in the box might give Saint-Etienne an extra boost.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Nathan. We're going to move on now to the preview section of our show, having covered Europe. Both the French teams, I think, acquitted themselves fairly well. There's obviously some question marks, but there's no such thing as a perfect performance in football. So we'll just approach these chronologically. We have Olympique Lyonnais versus Caen in Lyon's first home match of the season. Last weekend saw Caen pick up a dramatic 3-2 win over Lorient, courtesy of new signing Ivan Santini. Adam, are you back with us?
I am. I've managed to rectify the situation. Seem to be having some internet issues here at Radar Towers, I'm afraid, but I'm back now.
All right. So I wanted to come on to you first to talk about Santini. He was great, but against 10 men. Is he really going to continue to be that sort of test for Lyon and throughout the season? Have we lost Adam again?
Yeah, it sounds like his internet issues are claiming him into this evening.
All right. So I guess I'll come on to you then, Peter. My question again: Santini looked really impressive, but that was against 10 men. Will he be the same sort of test against a Lyon side that offer a higher quality of defense?
Well, one thing I would say, and I think it's a fairly well-known trope of football, is that actually a lot of the time it's much harder to play against 10 men than it is against 11. And I think Santini did a really good job of getting himself in all the right places, and the wingers did a very good job as well, actually, of providing him, because a big centre-forward like he is really nothing without the service. And I think certainly players like Ronnie Rodelin should be applauded for how they played last week, because they provided and they set up the space. And I think if Caen can find that kind of space again against Lyon, which I don't think they will, because I think Lyon, as you might agree, Eric, look pretty flipping good in their last game. Santini might have a bit of joy, but I think it's going to be a much different experience coming up against Nicolas Nkulu than it was last weekend.
Nathan, I'll come on to you. So we saw Caen playing their same 4-1-4-1 as last season, but Damien De Silva has returned to the roots of his youth and been moved forward into as a central defender, or central defensive midfielder, I should say, ahead of the back line, whereas he had been a defender last year. Do you think that him on his own in that role provides enough protection for the back line?
It's a good question. I'm not sure if him alone in some games like he will against Lyon will be enough, and whether they might bring someone like Stade Malbranche slightly further back to sort of help protect that area, because he can be decent in that area and still distribute from a deeper position. But I really like the move Damien De Silva into that role as well. He's a good solid centre back for Ligue 1, but moving him into that role it takes away some of that worry that sometimes he can be a little bit rash in the challenges, and he can sometimes dive in a little bit and find himself out of position. It allows him to use his passing, which can be pretty good, especially even distributing out wide. And as we've seen a couple of times, he can hit that speculative effort from distance and it fly into the top corner. We might see a couple more of those if he's in a defensive midfield position. But whether he'll be enough cover against someone like Lyon, I'm not sure. Against the mid-table to lower tier sides, I think he'll be plenty. It will give the freedom of players like Julien Ferret to move further forward without the worries of tracking back, and allow Rodelin, and if Santini carries on how he is playing, concentrating on the attacking sense while he helps cover that area. But I think it's a really interesting move for a player who is really versatile, it seems, and he's really growing at Caen. He's been a little bit of a surprise over the last year and a bit, and yeah, I think it's a good move, but he might need a little bit more next to him in this go.
Eric, do you think Lyon are going to be able to replicate their fantastic attacking performance of last weekend?
Well, probably. I think that Caen. I do have questions. If Garon persists with De Silva in that role, I don't think that there's enough protection for that back four. We saw Caen under Garon have a very go style, and they're as likely to concede 3 goals as they are to score 3 goals. And I think that this is the sort of match that, well, we can come on our predictions in a little bit, but has a great chance of being, say, a 4-1 win for Lyon. I think I remember a similar score in this fixture last year. It was either a hat trick or 4 goals for Fakir around about this time, and there's no reason for me that we should expect anything differently. So, Peter, a question for you then. We're likely to see the debut of Maciej Rybus. as Jeremy Morel is out with an injury. Is this the sort of match that's a good test for a new player in Ligue 1, or to get a sense of what the style is, or do you feel that his debut should be against perhaps a lesser team to sort of ease him in?
It's a difficult one to answer, really. I mean, if you have your debut against a weaker side, there can be overconfidence issues. If you play against a stronger side, you could say, hey, throw him in at the deep end. It's a difficult one, and it's all going to come down at the end of the day to how that individual player deals with that. I don't think there's any easy games in Liga, and I don't think that a game against Cannes can ever be considered as being easy, especially as, like you say, they're a very 100% go kind of start attacking side. I do think, however, that Lyon are going to impress this weekend again. I've just got this funny feeling that I would have said actually in the main show last Monday if I'd been able to get back from Stansted Airport in quicker time. But I really think Lyon are going to challenge this season, especially with the kind of transitional period that PSG are going to go through. And it wouldn't surprise me if we see more goals from Lacazette this weekend.
All right, so we'll come on now to our predictions. Just to recap, last week we had our 4 matches. We had 2 scores predicted correctly, I believe. One for Nathan and one for myself. And then for the results, I don't think anybody got the right result but the wrong score. I'm trying to take a look here. So, yeah, that is correct. We had myself predict the right score for Nice versus Rennes, and Nathan predicted the right score for Dijon versus Nantes, and then we had Nathan predict the right score for Saint-Etienne Bordeaux. So Nathan is our leader at the moment with 4 points, and I'm second with 3.
That's a nice thing to learn.
Yeah, so we're doing 3 points for a correct score, one point for a correct result. So I'll come on to you first, Peter. What is your score prediction for Lyon versus Caen?
I'm going to go 3-1 Lyon.
Okay, Nathan?
I'm going 4-0 Lyon in this one. They've got too much for Caen.
Decisive.
Hammering.
I'll go with 4-1.
Oh, my goodness me.
Yeah, they look scary in attack at times with Maxwell Cornet and Lacazette in form, and Fekir, when he gets that space, he starts running at people. As soon as he found a little bit of space against Nancy, he really influenced things, and I can't see Caen, especially how they started against Lorient. If they do that again, they're in for a hammering, I think.
Quick question for you, Eric, as the Lyon man for Get French Football. How do Lyon go about balancing those 4 attackers? Obviously, Cornet, Gazal, Lacazette, Fekir. If they're going to stick with the 4-3-3, they can't play all 4 of them. Could that potentially be a speed bump in what otherwise might be quite a good season for Lyon?
I don't think so. Gazal's injured right now, for one. And that's probably why he's not been sold, in my opinion. But I think that with the number of matches that they'll have, once the cup competitions start, Coupe de la Ligue, Champions League, Cornet can also play centrally, as can Fekir. It's less than ideal, but I think that having 4 attackers there is necessary to provide rotation. Once you add in Valbuena as well, and the youngster Gaetan Perrin and Aldo Kalulus yet to come back from injury as well, there really is a wealth of depth here. It wouldn't surprise me if a player were to move before the end of the window. Valbuena is probably the most likely, given his reputation. I'm not surprised if a club maybe in Russia or Mexico or maybe China would want to take a flyer on him, someone who could give him high wages, but maybe it's a lower standard to play than Liga. So I think that there's enough strength and depth, and that Genesio should be able to rotate these players and keep everybody happy. I think a 4-3-3 is the way to persist with this team. Come on now to Angers versus Nice. Angers signed a new keeper this week, a very highly regarded Matthew Michel from Nîmes. Talking to Brendan McFarlane, he's someone who's contributed to the main show as well. He's very excited. He thinks that Michel should slot right in, and that's it's a big upgrade over the likes of Petric and Letellier, who's injured at the moment. But Nathan, I wanted to come on to you first. Angers are displaying a little bit more of a new look. It's more of a 4-3-3 with less space in the front than what they had used last year. It was generally a 5-4-1 if you wanted to be strictly speaking at it. But now we've got Diadou who's starting essentially Ekambi and Sunu on the wings. Talk about the efficacy of this formation. It seems like Angers aren't quite going to be quite as dangerous without a sort of pacey outlet up top, where they had Sissoko and Keke Pompon in that role last year.
Yeah, I wasn't entirely enthralled by the performance against Montpellier and the choices that you've already mentioned. That I'm not the biggest fan of Gilles Sunu anyway, and playing him out wide seems to negate some of the effect that he usually has on a game, which isn't an enormous amount in my opinion anyway. But I was really frustrated by seeing the best name in French football left on the bench. Keke had a really good season last season and really flashed in at times and was a little bit of a creative spark when they needed him. He was sometimes a goal threat when they needed him to be, and I think that they really need someone like that on the pitch, because it was glaringly apparent in that Montpellier game that they didn't really create enough, even when they brought subs on, and Famara Diédhiou did not have an enormous amount of chances in that game, and even the ones he did, he missed, which is frustrating as well. But yes, they're missing something. I think it must be something like the pace. They don't seem to be as exciting as we thought they might be. But obviously, we've only seen one game, so we can't assume things straight away. But I want to see a little bit more from them. I would like to see someone like Keke Fonfon start. I think they need a little bit more from the midfielders as well. I thought they were pretty weak, and this is an interesting game heading to it with how Nice performed at the weekend, and they need to try and take advantage of that midfield area if they can.
Peter, coming on to you, I mean, obviously Angers are missing still Romain Saiss and Thomas Mangiani, very, very key parts of that midfield. Mangiani's set-piece deliveries, Saiss's determinateness in front of the defense were really key to Angers' style of play last year. Do you think that this is perhaps a temporary bump in the road, or have Angers been perhaps found out a bit, given their last season?
No, I don't think they've been found out about it. I think I would agree with your first point. I think it's a little bump in the road. I think it's something they'll get over. Got to remember that it's very difficult to judge how a team's going to do throughout a season on the first game, because there's a lot of things that go into the first game of a season that you don't really initially think about, like emotion and nerves and all kinds of things. So I do think Angers are going to be all right this season, and I think, as I've said before on previous podcasts, I think they'll push on. But one thing I would like to say, just on Gilles Sunu, I'm a Derby County fan, and I've been watching Derby County since I was about, I think, 10 years old, and I've seen some pretty awful players in my time. I've seen Robbie Savage, I've seen Claude Davis, I've seen Roy Carroll in goal. I've seen him concede 6 goals to Aston Villa. But never have I seen a more overcomplicated, mindless player as Gilles Sunu. I swear to you, I have seen Gilles Sunu run a ball out of touch more times than I've seen goals in the Premiership on Match of the Day. He's unbelievable, and I can't understand how he's getting in that Angers team. I honestly think, especially considering how well Toko Ekambi played, I think Angers will quickly realise what a good winger looks like, and I think Gilles Sunu will end up playing at left back. That's left back in the changing room.
Nathan, I'll come on to you. So we saw for Nice last week a new look from Lucien Favre. 4-1-4-1, trying to get the best out of a central midfield that's, again, lacking, pretty much had most of its spine ripped off, and perhaps is a bit ripped out, I should say, and is lacking a little bit in terms of creative play, with the likes of Hatem Ben Arfa going, Villa-Germain with the goals, Napolis Mendy in terms of defense. How effective, again, playing very young players, this needs a heavy degree of caveats applied to it, but how effective do you think that was, and do you think that against a sure to be resolute Angers side, he should adapt. Ricardo Pereira looks set to come back, but again, it's still going to be essentially the same group of players as last week.
Yeah, that'll be a really big boost from one area at least. But it was a little bit of a surprise and a little bit heartwarming, but also a little bit insane from Favre at the weekend. He played a number of younger players we didn't even have on our radars, like Malang Sarr, who scored the winning goal from the free kick, and they played the young right winger as well. I've not got his name in front of me, but he was only just 18 as well, and he's not even in their squad on Liga's website. So that's in front of players like Wieland Cyprian, who they've brought in over the summer as well. They started Lusamba straight away. They've got a midfield trio of Remy Walter, Vincent Cosiello, and the old man in that team, Jean-Michel Seri. It was strange. It was very strange. They couldn't really get a proper foothold in the game, it felt like. I thought Rennes caused them too many problems at the back, especially in the second half, although they did win, and it was a relatively lucky win in the end. I thought Souquet looks like he was maybe rushed into it a little bit, but he'll be okay now that Pereira's coming back. He'll probably be starting over him. Dalbert Enrique was very good going forward, but potentially a liability going back. But thank God to Paul Bice, who had a really, really strong game, and Johan Cardinal, who's really grown in that role as their main goalkeeper. I think in this game, if they just need a little bit extra, this will definitely be a better test, I think, than Rennes. Rennes struggled to have someone in the box to really finish off any chances that they had, and also at the same time, Nice failed to create anything of note to someone like Alisson Player, who went off with an injury, and I don't know if he'll be fit for this game. But they need to try and find a way to make this 4-3-3 if they plan to use that again, or the 4-1-4-1 that it almost looked at times. Get the best out of Vincent Cosiello and Jean-Michel Seri, because although some quarters said Remy Walter had a good game, but he gave the possession away in such dangerous areas that against anyone who has a good striker, they will be extremely punished. It was really, really bad. It was 2 or 3 times he lost it right in front of his centre backs, and they can't afford to do that with such a young team, because if this team starts losing goals, if they continue playing such young players, they're gonna crumble under that kind of thing. And he needs to be a little bit careful, Favre, with that. But it was interesting. There's a groundwork of things he definitely needs to improve on. But if Angers aren't producing the threat that we thought that they might do, or that they can do, then it might give them the time to settle and find their rhythm in this game if they can.
All right, we'll come on to score predictions then. Nathan, I'll come to you first.
This is a really difficult one, I think. I think this is probably the hardest one we've got this evening. I'm going to go for a goalless draw. I think I was disappointed in Angers, and they need to show me more. And I don't think with the players that he sent out, I don't think he'll change much for this game. And I can't see them punishing Nice as much as they should be punished. And Nice are still finding their rhythm. And they need to get Vincent Cosiello involved more, but I think it'll be a draw.
All right. I was going to say that. I'll go 1-0 to Angers. Peter?
I'm going to go for 1-1. I think if Angers are going to get off the mark, it's going to be against that Nice defence, because that was really, really attractive. But at the same time, I think Nice have got enough quality going forward with Plié and others to get a goal. So I'm going to go 1-1.
All right. Come on now to Lorient versus Bastia. Both of these teams, had lost last season. Lost last week. In somewhat extenuating circumstances. I mean, Bastia obviously are playing PSG. It's hard to expect another result than that. Lorient had started the match pretty brightly, but had a man sent off in Zargo Torre and ended up losing to Caen 3-2 at the end. But Peter, I'll come on to you. Bastia looked really resolute against PSG. The loan signings look impressive. Jerson Cabral could start. He's been a really dynamic player at times for Twente in the Dutch league. Is this a team that could give Lorient some more problems?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I've got to be honest. I don't know a massive amount about Bastia, but I thought they put in a spirited performance last weekend. I think they've got some decent players in there as well. They've obviously got Lenny Nanguis on loan from Lille, who I think is potentially in line for big things. Alassane Maxim, is it? God, how do you pronounce it? Maximin. Oh, there we go. Third time lucky. On loan from Monaco, obviously. I think he looks a good player. But I'm honestly not too sure. I think Bastia are one of those clubs who, as long as they're committed going forward and challenging teams and trying to match them play for play, then they'll be overachieving. I have to be honest. I remember the times when I used to watch Bastia more was back when Budabus was still playing for them, and I really feel they've kind of been drifting ever since he went.
All right, Adam, come on. How do you see Bastia's season shaping up? They've made a lot of really interesting loan signings, and particularly against Lorient, they've got a chance to lay down a real marker. And do you see them having a successful match this Saturday and a successful season?
I think that they will. I think for Bastia, staying in Ligue is good. I mean, at the beginning of the season, I think if they're lower mid-table by the end of the year, I think that's kind of par. That's kind of a relative success for them. Bearing in mind that their home form is so good, and their stadium is such a fortress. They get most of their points there. Away from home, they're generally pretty awful, and they seem to have followed that path for the last three or four seasons. This game against Lorient is an interesting one. As I mentioned on the preview show we did for Ligue on the main show on Monday, that Lorient have lost their artificial pitch. Well, they've changed it to a grass surface, and that's kind of been one of their positives for their home performances. So that managers will rest players because they don't like playing on that. They're worried about injuries playing on that surface. So that's been a kind of a little sort of bonus for them when they play at home. And given that they've lost a few players over the course of the winter, without really over the summer, like Diouf not really replacing him. I think this could be a relatively close game, despite Bastia's sort of terrible away form over the last few years. But I still fancy Lorient to nick it at home. I think they've probably got Mukanjo, who seems to be hitting the ground running as he did last year. I think he's another. He could hit that purple patch like he did at the beginning of last season, which probably kept Lorient up, and it might do the same again this year if they get the same amount of goals out of him. And I'd fancy him to get the goal and nick it 1-0, but. Bastia did look a decent proposition against PSG. They played well. They really gave them the game. I'm just struggling to say his name as well. Alain Saint-Maximin was good, as well as Enzo Crivelli. Kawasak's always a combative presence in midfield. But it'll be close. But I still fancy Lorient given their home record and Bastia's terrible away record.
Nathan, come on, you just finished discussion of this. Obviously, Zarco Torre is going to be a big miss. Belugu is likely to come in. Lorient wants to play this open 4-4-2 formation, but are they just lacking the quality to have success against a team that is so defensively sound as Bastia, especially playing away from home?
It's difficult to say, isn't it? I was really impressed actually by the start they made against Caen until disaster struck and they had Zango Torre sent off, because the connection between Mukanjo and Waris looks very positive again. I mean, we mentioned on the preview that Mukanjo struggled to score other than penalties, and especially in the second half of the season. So he'll be massively boosted with the 2 goals he got, and one was laid on the plate really for him by his strike partner, and it was a really nice assist as well. I think they might be all right this season. Like you say, the worry might be creatively, but I think they've got decent players in the middle of the park. I think Didier Ndong's a very underrated player in Liga. Philippe Poteau has his moments as well of creativity, and I think with those 2 strikers, that's an important thing in Liga. And if you've got 2 people who can score goals in this league, it will take you half the way there. And I think having those 2 sniffing up even half chances sometimes, it gives you that massive boost. And to have Mukanjo already scored 2, even though 1 was a penalty, it's going to breed that confidence in them. But I'm really interested in this game. I agree with the comments earlier. Bastia looked really good. Saint-Maximin was excellent. I think they should try and start Thierry Buffuma if they can on this game, because I don't know who else watched that game, but Saido Diallo tried to strike the ball from about 30 yards out about 5 different times, and I think he hit all 4 corners of the arena by the end of it. But you can't start him in the next game. But it's a really intriguing match, and Lorient need to get the most out of their strikers, and if they can and give them even half chances, that might just be enough.
I wholeheartedly agree with those comments about Diallo. So we'll get score predictions now. Adam, I'll come to you first.
I think just 1-0 Lorient. Though it'll be close and it'll be tight. There won't be many goals, but 1-0 Lorient, I think. Maybe Makanjo from the penalty spot.
All right. I'm going to go with 2-2. I think that the introduction of Cabral to the teams and bring a lot, and perhaps Puma as well, is going to give a lot more dynamism to Bastien. I think that Lorient are also always good for goals. Nathan?
I'm going to go 2-1 Lorient. I think that Bastia look like they're going to be interesting this season, and I think they'll get it together in a couple of games, but I think they still need a couple of games to fully gel and get Crivelli more involved, because in the second half he was so isolated against PSG, and I worry about that again in the second half as they start to tire. So 2-1 Lorient.
Peter?
1-0 Lorient. Makanjo.
Oh, Adam's already picked that one.
Yeah.
Oh, Adam. Okay.
My apologies.
Bugger it. I'll go 5-0 Lorient then.
No. All right. Remember, we get points for predicting the exact score. So, Peter could steal a march on us here. All right. So our final match of the show.
Believe, guys. Believe.
Final match of the show is PSG versus Metz. Nathan, I'll come on to you. So Metz really showed quite a bit of opportunism against Lille. They got a lot of good dynamism from Kohad playing in central midfield. Jouf and Open Naget played, I think, fantastically well on the wings. Is there a real potential that they could, potentially trouble a PSG team who might not be taking them seriously?
No. There's way too much quality in this PSG side to do that, and I'm sure Emre will get them focused on this game. But adding to what you said, they were impressive at the weekend, and they grew into that game against Lille, especially in the second half. Like you meant, René Coad added a real experience to the middle of the park. I thought Jan Jouffer and Opan Get were excellent on the wings, but I thought they also did excellently to rejuvenate that moment as well. I thought Philippe Hinchberger did a very good job in his substitutes. I thought Habib Diallo added an extra bit and he won a penalty. I thought Ismaili Sarr added a bit as well when he came on. He got himself a penalty as well. So they've shown that they've got a little bit about them going forward. And you're right, if PSG are completely out of the woods and not thinking, and some of them looked a little bit brain dead against Bastia, they could be caught short by this kind of team with a player like Merville Erding who can score goals in Ligue 1, and it was good to see him get off the mark because that'll be a real positive for him in the season. But this is probably a game Metz are expecting nothing from, and you either go one of two ways in Ligue 1, and you either try and shut up shop and try and get that draw, or you just go hell for leather and try and get the goals. I think evidenced by their game against Lille, where they were a little bit timid in that first half and they were punished quite easily. I would go hell for leather with the style they've shown in that first game and go for it. There's no harm in that. Their results against PSG aren't going to define their season. They know that. So I think they should try and make it exciting as they can. Can they punish PSG? I'm not 100% certain because I don't think the quality's quite there to really hurt PSG if they play to a standard where they know they can. But they'll cause teams some problems this season, but I can't see it in this game.
All right. Adam, we'll come on to you. So we have a little bit of a selection dilemma, depending if Edinson Cavani can pass fit or not, in terms of who will operate as the quote-unquote striker in that 4-2-3-1. Who do you think, given Ben Arfa's iffy performance last week, Emery should opt for in terms of that position? Have we lost Adam again? think we might have lost Adam. Okay, Peter, I'll throw that to you. Do you feel that Emery should opt for Ben Arfa or Cavani as the central striker?
I think he should do the absolute bare minimum of what a manager is expected to do and just play footballers in their proper position. I think Ben Arfa needs to go and sit in that number 10 role. I think Cavani should sit up front. I don't think it needs to be too much more complicated than that. I think it worked for Laurent Blanc in terms of just playing people in their most natural position. I know he didn't do that with Cavani all the time, but he certainly did with others. And I think he should just play to his strengths. In terms of what I think is actually going to happen in this game, I've just got to say that Metz conceded 2 goals against Lille, and Lille are the worst side in Ligue 1 at the moment. So if they can concede 2 goals against Les Doges, then, my word, they could be in for a difficult game. In fact, I'm so stunned as to how to describe what I think is going to happen to Metz. I've decided to type in bloodbath into thesaurus.com. So here's some other ways: massacre, carnage, slaughter, purge. It's going to be a bloodbath.
I like purge.
All right. So I guess my last point on this would be I'd like to see, personally, just a chance for Thomas Meunier in this match. Just on the side, I think he looked really, really fine in the preseason matches here in the United States, and is deserving of a chance against a team like Metz with Monaco next weekend. And Aurier likely to start that. This should be a good chance to give the Belgian right back a run out and show what he can do. He really did look exceptional here in the States. So score predictions, I'm going to go with 5-0 myself. Nathan?
I'm going to go with 3-0. I think PSG will just canter this one at the end. They'll score early and they'll just do the classic roll on 3-0.
Peter?
4-0 for me.
All right. I'll get Adam's score predictions from him via message, but that is all for this week. Thanks for joining us. For more information, you can follow us on Twitter at GFFN and visit our website at www.getfootballnewsfrance.com. For Peter Bowler, Adam White, and Nathan Staples, I've been Eric Devin. Thank you and have a great rest of your day. Please be sure to follow us on Match Zone for coverage of the weekend's matches, and to also tune in on Monday from 8 p.m. British time for our Get French Football News show hosted by Nathan. Thank you and have a pleasant rest of your weekend.